to the Author to Authority podcast. And today I have a guest that's going to talk about an unusual topic for our show, but I think completely appropriate in this COVID-19 environment. And Meaghan's going to be sharing today about homeschooling. And for many of our listeners, you have now become homeschool parents, whether you want to or not. Now, Meaghan Jackson of Joyful Mud Puddles is a parenting and homeschool coach. She has taken her passion for bringing peaceful calm to family life and pairs that with her background in education to help parents become more confident and well-equipped. Meaghan has a Bachelor of Education in Engineering, along with several years of teaching experience at a private school. But since having children, she has homeschooled her 3 boys and is an advocate for the homeschool community, organizing events and leading classes. On top of that, she is also a successful business owner and entrepreneur. And Meaghan understands the difficulties that many parents go through trying to juggle it all. And she is going to be sharing with us today some amazing strategies for being able to manage your family in this COVID-19 environment. So welcome to the show, Meaghan.
Hi, thank you.
So Meaghan, tell us a little bit more about yourself and about your story.
Thank you. Well, like you said, I have 3 boys, and when my children were born, I decided to be at home with them, and that kind of led into homeschooling. We felt that our oldest just wasn't quite ready for the kindergarten environment, and every year after that we're like, oh, we'll just see, and then that he's never been to school and he's 12, so I think we've decided that it's just for us. I became a homeschooling and parenting coach because I wanted to offer better support than what I received when my family was going through a rough period. So we were struggling as parents. I was trying to run a business, homeschool, and I had had a miscarriage, and I had fallen apart. And other people were noticing, the neighbors, my family, and when other people notice, you can't hide it anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
So I realized I needed to reach out and get some help. So that's when I looked into getting a parenting coach for myself and taking some online parenting classes and things. And they really, really helped. Of course, I had to do a lot of work and research myself to sort of fit it into my own unique situation.
Yes.
But the transformation was incredible. And when something great happens to you, it's one of those things where you just can't keep it to yourself. So I took everything that I recorded that worked for myself, as well as what I'd already been doing, and now that's what I can offer to other people.
That is so cool. So is this one of those situations where you might let your kids go to high school, or are you planning on homeschooling them all the way through?
So what we do every year is we just assess what works and what needs are for each of our children, because they're all so very different.
Mm-hmm.
Like for high school, if one of them wants to do something that is only available or is best available at a high school, or if there's some teams or co-ops they want to do, then of course, and they've always had their own choice.
Mm-hmm.
In the say, so it's a constant ongoing conversation about what we need as a family or what's working best for the kids, because I also run 2 businesses. So we had our youngest in daycare for a year because I honestly could not manage with a 3-year-old running around. So we if things can change, we assess what needs to work at the time.
It's funny you said that. When my daughter, I'd chosen to stay home. Now, I didn't homeschool my kids because there wasn't the resources that there is today. But when my kids were little, they canceled JK for 2 years. And so my daughter, who's the youngest, had been wanting to go to school since her brother did. So for 2 years, she'd been wanting to go to school. So at 2 years old, her brother would get on the bus, and it would take everything I could not to have her climb on the school bus with him. So when they canceled JK, let's just say my daughter was not a very happy camper. And it got to the point that I actually went to work for a year or two so I could afford to put her in daycare so she could pretend she was going to school, because she was making our life miserable.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Because she wanted to be at school so bad. And I'm like, I can't take any more.
Yeah, it's really hard when they're certain ages and they just don't understand, the bigger picture, right?
Yeah, like, I mean, I was just as disappointed that she was not going to school. Because she really needed to be in school. She was one of these very social creatures, right? So, she needed that environment where she had lots of people around. That's how she thrived. So, I liked what you said about the fact that you gauge it by each child, and each child has an input. So you're looking at the needs of the family and the needs of each individual child. And I think that's something that's really important in today's environment, as families are now forced to homeschool, because each of your children is different.
Definitely. And you have to sort of see what learning styles they each have and what interests they have. Like, it's all very customized.
Mm-hmm. So can you talk maybe for a minute or two about some of the learning styles? Because maybe parents don't realize that children have them.
Well, it's very true. I mean, when you send your kids off to school, you assume that the teacher's the authority, or that they're all learning the same thing the same way. And most teachers do an amazing job of trying to incorporate different ways of learning into a lesson so that they address all different types. Some children learn best through listening and auditory. There's some that are visual learners, so pictures, graphs, reading. Yeah.
Reading.
And some learn best through like hands-on.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, there's many more ways too. There's technology. Some learn best through music and nature. And so there's the more ways you can incorporate different senses, different movements, different parts of the body, then it's teaching them to expand how they learn, as well as hitting how they learn best.
Awesome. All right, so I know that you've come prepared with some hints, tips, and advice for us today, so I'm going to let you loose to share for a bit.
Sure. Well, I know that a lot of people are working from home and have suddenly got their kids home from school, and they're like, how do I even manage all of this? And the biggest thing that you have to do is you have to have a big mindset shift in your mindset, because you're not in a traditional workplace anymore, and your kids are not following a traditional school schedule anymore. So don't try to recreate it. But a lot of people do. They're like, okay, now I have to do school at home, but you don't, and it's not going to work. You're just going to burn out and be really frustrated. Mm-hmm. The other thing to remember is that this is not homeschooling. So please, if you're ever even considering it or not, don't taint your view of homeschooling by this crazy pandemic, because we get out. we aren't trapped at home. Like, we're actually so social, and there's such great community available that wasn't years ago. So that's sort of my opening statement, is this is not normal. But the biggest thing you can do to help your family is to have a strong rhythm. Now, we go with a rhythm over a schedule because it's more of a flow to the day rather than set times and bells ringing. If you can look at the biggest needs of you and your work and your kids. So if you have certain conference calls that you have on certain times of the day, stick those in. Put in what you actually have to get done for your boss or for your specific work, and look at how much that time that's going to need. Then consider the actual needs of your kids. If they have any appointments or maybe classes that they're taking, put those on the schedule first. don't forget about food. You get some angry kids and you've forgotten to plan out meals and snacks. So put like the big anchor points of your day on a piece of paper and really try to hit those in the day. Then fill it in with the nice to haves, because those can come and go depending on the flow, and you have to be a little flexible now because kids are not predictable. They're just gonna, have a temper tantrum. Something's gonna come up, and
he
you're gonna
looked at me.
So you have to have the anchor points along with some flexibility.
Yes.
Right. And then beyond that, you try to, again, with the mindset shift, is that you don't have to do things at the same times as you normally would. So what works for my family is that we break our day up into little chunks. So I get up before the kids and I do some work. Yes. Then I spend time with them, fill their bucket, give them attention. We play because the weather's cooler. Then they do some schoolwork. When it starts getting hot, I can do a bit of work on my phone, checking emails while they're doing their schoolwork. And then they have quiet time or screens, and that's another chunk for me to do more work. So you're chunking up your day.
Yes.
Giving them attention, giving them some alone time, and kind of flip-flopping back and forth.
You brought up a lot of really good points there, and I just want to touch on one of them. You talked about food and meals and snacks, and one thing I saw on Facebook, which I thought was really neat, was a mom went and got different colored baskets for each kid. So each kid had their favorite color basket. And so each morning or the night before, or whoever it worked, she would fill their basket with their snacks for the day. And I guess like they could have like one juice box or something like that, right? So she had snacks and a juice box in there. So the kids got used to the fact that those were their snacks for the day. So they weren't to go to mom and say, "Mom, I want a snack," right? Yeah. So each kid had their snack basket. So if you ate your entire snack basket in the morning, you were out of luck. And I thought, that's a really cool idea, right? Because then you're not getting the kids constantly going, "I want food," right?
And it's perfect for families where the kids were already used to having their lunch bag. Just use your lunch bag, pack your snack like you were going to school anyways, and keep that rhythm when they were having recess or whatever. Mm-hmm. Their bodies are going to get hungry when they normally would be eating. So just keep going with that. For us, because my kids are already used to being at home, we have accessible snacks. So I make sure there's a snack drawer in the fridge with stuff that they're used to and that they don't need me to unpeel or open as well.
Well, I think the other thing too is I saw this at the beginning of this is that, kids were just eating the house out because they were at home and they were bored. So that was one of the reasons why this mom came up with this basket, because, like her food bills were going nuts because the kids were just eating all day because they, kids emotional eat just like we do. So, and they didn't understand what was going on.
That's a really good point that you brought up, is that the kids were getting bored. And when your kids are home all day and you're not used to it, they're not used to it either, because school takes up like 6 to 8 hours of their day. Yeah. When you're home, you quickly realize that the learning part of it, if your family's choosing to follow whatever the teachers are sending, or maybe some of them are doing their own thing, you end up with a whole lot of free time. Because there isn't those transition points between classes and the recess and getting everybody set up with their work. And so for us, we get all our schooling done in 1 to 2 hours. Yeah. And that's it. And most homeschoolers do too. If they're younger, you're only doing like 20 minutes for anything like grade 3 and under is like half an hour maybe. So you've got a whole day and, oh my gosh, what am I supposed to do? So some of the things, and then you want to be productive too and actually get some things done around the house or with your work. So I found that open-ended toys like blocks, Lego, those type of Play-Doh even, they tend to engage children longer because they're using more imagination than a set toy that only does like 2 functions.
Yes.
The other thing is sensory play, like sandboxes, dirt, water. Some people like the water beads or the kinetic sand. Those also keep them engaged. You can even go simple and just stick the kid in the bath for a while and sit there and do your work next to them. Another thing, online learning is, so if they're doing classes or they've signed up for something online, there's lots of apps and games that so then they're occupied, but they're also learning. And that really makes you both feel good. Like you're feeling good, they're enjoying themselves, and you can get a bit of work done. I'll let your own families navigate screen time, because that's another hot topic. But again, you can get some work done while they're occupied. And if you can find some good documentaries or some really engaging shows, then they're also learning a lot through what they're watching. Of course, getting outside is amazing if you can, where the weather's nice. They're learning so much, and they're burning off a ton of energy just playing, getting outside. Another thing is podcasts. There are so many amazing children's podcasts out there that my boys are constantly telling me interesting facts that, I just heard on some podcast. I'm like, seriously? So they're engaged. I can leave them. They're like half an hour long, and even my 4-year-old loves them too. And also my kids love to be involved in what I'm doing. I'm sure you've noticed they always want to be by your side. So we've allowed my workspace to have little kitty safe stamps and papers, and they think they're playing Office, and they're always hanging out with me. So if you can engage them in what they're doing, for my older children now, I've got them learning how to do video editing for my YouTube channel. And so I'm actually making use of them as they get older. We'll see. If you ever watch one of my video clips and it's choppy, it wasn't me. But
I think you brought up... Go ahead.
Right now, like, I know a lot of parents are panicking, thinking that they have to follow something, or they have to follow what the teachers have sent them. And really, any activity that you can do that's connecting you as a family and is working on their problem solving, their resilience, helping them manage their big feelings and stress that they're under, is going to carry them farther in life than any extra math sheets that you're throwing at them. Because it's learning how to learn, learning how to deal with stress, learning how to cooperate and communicate with other people in your family. Look at the big picture instead of worrying about the tiny details, because they're learning so much when they're baking, when they're playing board games, when you're reading to them. You don't feel like it, but really there's a lot of learning going on, and then you're strengthening that family bond.
Well, you know what? And it's not the teacher's fault, but, life skills are not being taught in school anymore.
Yeah.
And I think this has been, one of the benefits of this time is families are really having to go back to the basics.
Yeah.
And two things you talked about. Hey, I will think of something else because they just went out of my brain. That does happen some days. But like you said, it's important to have somewhat of a structure, but it doesn't have to be set in stone. But one thing I was thinking about in terms of screen times, when my kids were small, we didn't have DVDs, we had VHS. And I did work from home, I did network marketing, those kinds of things. And I would need time to call my clients. So one of the things I did when the kids were small is they had their favorite VHS, and it was one that they both loved. And the only time that VHS went on was when mom was working. And so they only got to watch it when mom was working. And the deal was you had to sit on the couch for half an hour and watch this. And it was Sesame Street, and it was singing. So, you know, it wasn't anything that was going to hurt them. And, you know, you could get down to go to the bathroom. You had to sit on opposite ends of the couch. And if mom heard you fighting, she came out and turned it off, and that was done. And so it got to the point, and they loved this VHS, like it was their favorite one of all time. So they learned very quickly that, you know, if they fought or misbehaved or were causing a ton of noise, mom came, shut it off, and that was it for the night, right? And then they went to bed early. So it worked out really well, and they got used to the fact that they got to watch their favorite thing when mom worked.
Yeah. My boys, and if you have these honest conversations, like I love that you had like a special thing that's only during that time, and it like it could be screens, it could also be a special toy that only comes out while you're working too, so they look forward to it. And also having that honest conversation with the kids so that they know that it's a priority for your family, and they know, don't interrupt me, because, and then there's natural consequences. You interrupt, and then that's it. We're done. We move on.
Well, the other thing we did too was, you know, I told the kids, you know, if mommy can earn, you know, if mommy can make her phone calls tonight and she can earn this amount of money, you know, your job is to behave. So you are going to get paid to behave so mommy can do her work and make money. So their job was to behave. That's how they helped mommy make money. So, you know, when they would do that, and not every single day, but like usually, like say once a month or once every usually once every couple of weeks when they were smaller, because a month is such a long space for them. But usually once every 2 weeks, if they let me have, generally, okay, like there was the occasional bad day, but if they generally let me have my work time, you know, they would get a special treat. We'd take them to McDonald's or to Dairy Queen or something, or, you know, there was an arcade in the mall, or, you know, the playhouse or whatever. So they got a special treat for allowing mommy. That was their payment for good behavior that allowed mommy to make money.
I love that. That's such a great idea that you had like a plan and like celebrating, right? You're celebrating that everything worked out in the plan, and that's a huge one.
Well, and it made them feel like they were working towards it too.
Yes, definitely.
You know, it wasn't just a reward, you earned it. This is your payment for good behavior, right? And I think another thing that's important, and you touched on too, and maybe we could touch on it just briefly a little bit more, is helping children deal with the stress and the emotions right now. Because I think that's a big one. And I think parents are seeing a lot of behavior that they weren't expecting. And I think the cause of it is that children just don't know how to deal with how they're feeling.
Yeah, that's half of the work I do with parents as a parenting coach is emotion coaching, coping skills, and big feelings. And they come out in bad behavior, and you have to be a detective. So this morning, my youngest was upset over everything. Like, daddy left for work, he started crying. His set of keys that we've given him, fake keys, don't actually work on anything, and that set him off. Like, you have to dig down and look at the feelings and the needs behind, like keep layering down until you find out what was really going on with this behavior. Yes. And sometimes be mindful of the fact that like you're probably stressed out too, and we're getting antsy and we're getting cabin fever. And these poor kids, they're getting out less than the adults because they can't even go to the grocery store. No. And they can't see their friends. And so they might be misbehaving, and it's really that they're under a lot of stress. And so empathy, understanding, my big key phrase for everything that I do is connection over correction. And connect with them, get into their world, find out what's going on, rather than trying to target the surface and the Band-Aid solution of what their behavior is. Because usually kids want to do well. They don't want to try to bother you or be bad. They love you. And it's just they can't handle all the big feelings that they're having.
Yeah. The only, like, we did have a fair amount of discipline, but I always recognized there was reasons behind. So many times, it wasn't really discipline. Like you said, it was dealing with these big emotions. The only time I really did discipline fast was intentional rebellious behavior. The hammer came down fast on that one. I was not putting up. Okay. The, you know, the, sometimes the temper tantrums, you could tell it was just emotional, but if it was sort of rebellious behaviors, like, yeah, no, not accepting that. But if you can see that they're just having this emotional meltdown, that's different. That doesn't need to be disciplined. That's giving you an opportunity to teach them the valuable life skill of how do you deal with your emotions.
Yeah.
And each child was different. Like my daughter, once she got wound up, it took her a long time to come down. And we learned that. And we learned that we had to bring her down step by step, right? My son, he was pretty easy. You explain something to him, he'd stop crying, he'd get distracted by a toy, he'd be gone, right? My daughter, on the other hand, no, it was usually several hours.
I hear that. And it gives you a chance to be sort of the calm in their storm. Mm-hmm. But the hardest thing for parents, especially right now, is their own self-regulation. So yes. A lot of you have to be calm in order to help them be calm, because you're just going to feed off each other and not get anywhere. So I work a lot with the parents to help them with their own, self-regulation too.
And, sometimes it's hard because, this behavior comes out and you just want to give in because you're so tired.
Oh, yeah.
But it's important not to give in, because you're not really helping your child learn to live life. You're teaching them that, bad emotional responses are how you deal with hard emotions. And that doesn't work.
Yeah.
Oh. Now, do you have any other tips, hints, and advice for us today?
I think we covered a lot. But
I do too.
Yeah, the main thing is just connect with your family, be honest, have some family meetings about what your priorities right now are, and teach for those big life skills. And try to teach yourself, like care for your own self too. You're going through a lot of stress, so take care of yourself.
And I think let's talk about that just really briefly, because I think that's really important too. Is I think there's a perception out there that nowadays that as a parent you have to be super parent. You have to be able to do it all and understand it all and handle it all. And if you can't, you're a bad parent. Well, nobody can handle it all. Oh. And I think one of the things that's missing is that, back in older times when you lived in closer knit communities and you had several generations, you always had someone to go to talk about things. You had your mom or your sister or a friend or, somebody at church or, like there was a lot of community around you. And I think we're missing that today. So, I think it's important as parents is, like when you're on overwhelm, it's important for you to reach out for help. Like if you just really can't deal with it, then, let somebody else shoulder you for a few minutes. Sometimes that's all you need, right? Like just that listening ear.
Yeah, you'd be surprised at how people are embarrassed because social media is so fake sometimes. Like they only show you the clip or the corner. I mean, you could see the office behind me, it's a mess and I'm showing you one corner, right? Because that's what society is showing. Just like you think that it's perfect, but when I have my coaching calls, we do group sessions and everyone is like this big sigh of relief. Like, I'm not alone. Yeah. Every parent is going through the same thing as me. And yeah, community is huge right now, that we need to create that. And we're lucky that you can do that online now, because we can't with the social distancing. So if you can find like a Facebook group or go to some Zoom calls or just reach out to anybody, you'd be so relieved to know that you are not alone. People have gone through it, and they might have some great suggestions for you.
And I think the other thing too is to recognize that kids go through stages.
Yeah.
You know, and
Never
each
yeah.
And the children do not go through the same stages at the same times either. And you know, sometimes you just need to recognize the fact that some of the things that are happening to your kids are just the stage they're in. And this too shall pass.
Definitely.
I always found, like, with having two kids, it was like one child would be doing like really great and the other one would be struggling, right? And you know, the one that was struggling would just start to hit really good and you think, oh. And then the one that's doing good, just like, you're like, oh. Well, Meaghan, how can people get a hold of you? Like, I think a lot of people are probably going to want to connect with you and find out more about you and what you do and how you can help them.
So I'm on every social media you can find under Joyful Mud Puddles. And also joyfulmudpuddles.com is my main website. And I have a blog and has all my services there. So, and when you go there, I also have a free parenting video series right now that has a whole lot of parenting tools and strategies that you get through email, and some bonus cheat sheets to stick up on your fridge to help you when they are having big emotions.
So that's Joyful Mud, M-U-D, puddles.com. Well, thank you so much, Meaghan, for being on the show. So I've had Meaghan Jackson, a wonderful guest, and I'm Kim Thompson-Pinder, host of the Author to Authority podcast. Make sure you subscribe so that you get all of our episodes. And you're also welcome to join me on my Author to Authority community on Facebook. It's an amazing place where you can go as an entrepreneur, receive help and support for your business, and just really learn how to take your business to the next level. So I've really enjoyed this conversation today, and we will see you on the very next episode. Bye now.